Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast.
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
And we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. This video is created thanks to Modern Expo, one of the key players in the world's parcel locker market. Modern Expo's product portfolio includes innovative solutions with refrigeration and freezing cells, Bluetooth locks, and even personal parcel lockers. Marek, we got a bit carried away with our last video. We ran over time. So we're going to try and finish it off here. We were talking about different styles of lockers. In our previous video, there'll be a link up there somewhere, or at some point, you'll work it out, you bright people. We talked about indoor versus outdoor. We started talking about the screenless versus the lockers without a screen compared to lockers with a screen. And Marek used the memorable phrase of parasitic lockers. We were talking about this, how you need to have the app to be able to access it. Are we excluding any customers by having it app dependent? I almost feel like it's someone who's going to use a parcel locker probably have a mobile phone.
Hello, Ian. Hello, everybody. You're absolutely right, because the sort of person that's going to be buying online, the chances are, particularly in the Western Hemisphere, they are going to have a smartphone. Yes, of course, you might eliminate a relatively small group of customers who don't. If you have a choice of having a locker nearby because there isn't the infrastructure otherwise, or having a locker further away, which doesn't require an app, it's pretty obvious where it's going to go. I think the bigger issue, Ian, is how do you find a scenario in which somebody wants your app? And it's okay if you're Amazon or if you're Alibaba, but if you're a much smaller, maybe locker only company, it's much more difficult to convince someone to have your app.
Well, that's probably another discussion for another day, talking about interactive delivery management and how that all interfaces with customer choice, in-flight changes, which I really think should be called in-transit change. That's just a personal opinion. And then accessing the locker at the end of it, not to mention all of the notifications that you receive along the way. Interesting little tangent, Marek. Somebody once entered my phone number for their parcel. So they're tracking. I was getting messages from Australia Post saying, your parcel is now ready for collection from Cobram Post Office. Here's your reference. And I thought, well, that's not my parcel. That's it.
But if you think about it, it's so easy to do, isn't it? Because you just need the phone number or a mistake. Theoretically, there could be a couple of Ian Kerrs at whatever your local provider is.
So it was an interesting one. That was an SMS message sent from Australia Post, as opposed to sort of interacting via the Australia Post app. Again, a discussion for another day. But Marek, we're talking about these two kinds of lock, the Bluetooth screenless compared to the power supply and screen versions that are out there. You were talking in the last episode about getting planning permission because they can be smaller. Is there also that modular aspect of it that you can add, if a parcel locker bank is popular, you can add to it? Is that possible also with the sort of the traditional lockers as well?
Well, again, actually, I had a recent visit with one of the, let's say, best known and longest serving suppliers. And I asked actually that very question, Ian. So we think alike. With the classical module, you can actually have, the control tower or whatever we want to call it, the central part with the screen. And then several, I think it was in the case of that particular supplier, up to 400 cells from one control unit. With the next gen lockers, they come, I can't remember if it's 20 or say plus minus 20 cells.
Yeah.
You have to replicate the whole machine next to it. So although let's say the central electronics are a lot simpler because of what we discussed, actually you do need the whole.
It's a whole unit. It's not there's one. You're just adding doors. You're adding tech as well. It's not. I say just doors. It's not just doors. But you anyway.
But you know what, Ian? I think I know why. We can check, and maybe somebody from Switchbox, Keba, or whoever else is doing the next gen machines can tell us. But I think it's probably because the battery is central to the whole unit. And these things, it's incredible. Switchbox and Keba have told me that we're talking about 9 or 10 years battery life, and they say they've tested it. I still remember a long time ago, I said hair will grow here if it's 10 years. But, maybe hair will start growing. So, we'll see.
You never know. Don't throw away your brush just yet. When we're talking about these lockers, you mentioned that there's a couple of manufacturers. Obviously, there's our friends at Modern Expo as well as sponsoring this video, who who produce lockers. And of course, if you're going to Parcel and Post Expo in Frankfurt this year, make sure you come and see us. We're going to be at the Modern Expo stand at some point. Details to be released later on, I think, Marek, is how we put it.
And there are going to be some really interesting things happening there. So whatever you do, make sure you look us up at the Modern Expo stand.
And where was I going with all this, Mark? Talking about these, one of the things that Modern Expo talks about is this idea of lockers as street furniture. And I think this is an interesting concept of saying, well, hang on, we've gone from having these very functional things that you plonk down in the street and they're, like a DHL pack station going back 20 years. It was just a metal box plonked down in the street, saying, well, how can this also be part of the urban environment? And I think that I think this is possible with both the screenless and the screen full. The lockers with screens. We can achieve this goal of integrating lockers into the urban environment.
I think it's a really good point, and there's a role for urban planners generally to start thinking about this. If you look, maybe we can even get a picture of an Allegro locker, which I believe is a Modern Expo machine. And what you'll do is you'll see that they're green, they're Levy, and very different to the Lithuanian Post machines, which have, artistic designs to make the machine look attractive. This is all about blending in, looking green, which lockers are, and fitting in with the urban landscape. There are going to be developments. One thing we should do, because if we don't do this, we'll be remiss, is to talk about, who the players are. It's been changing an awful lot. So I call them maybe let's be nice, let's say the father, not the grandfather of lockers, is Keba, because they're the guys who started out there at the very beginning with Deutsche Post. Austrian company, very stable, very experienced, one of the bigger players in the sector. Interestingly, you don't talk about the locker providers, you talk about the networks. So I think it's interesting to do this. Then you've got, at the other end of the scale, you've got one of the challengers, which is Swipbox. Very good on technology. I think they were the first probably that came up with the next-gen machines. Quite expensive in terms of production because they do most of their stuff in Denmark, which is not the cheapest place. I know that because I went to look at universities for my daughter, and it was probably the most expensive weekend I've had in a long time. Then you've got our friends at Modern Expo who, because of the fact that they're in a relatively low-cost market, and chapeau bas that despite the Russian aggression on Ukraine, they're still able to produce effectively. No one sees that there are any issues there. So chapeau bas to them, and they're a very good low-cost option close to Europe. If you don't want to go all the way to China, where probably if you're going to produce thousands of the things, you'll get maybe a better price, but then you have to add the transport cost, which is not insignificant. So you got Modern Expo. Then we got some. Do you remember the Cleveron Towers? Yep,
of course.
So you got Cleveron, which I think has been less visible now. Maybe partly because the machine they're known for best costs a fistful of dollars, because unless it's changed, it used to be about 100,000.
Well, they've got two parcel robots. They've got the Parcel Tower, which is a striking piece of technology, isn't it? And then there are they're parcel robots, which you look like a locker, but they've got no doors. So
they've got lots. They've been developing a lot of stuff. My concern, honestly, with them is that it's very much sort of not in a mad sense, but scientists going around creating a lot of new things, and some of it's really, really innovative. But I wonder whether sometimes it's not better to go back, perfect what's classical, and maybe these simple next-gen machines. But the reality is those machines are good if it comes to really massive throughput of parcels. You've got several players who actually have Chinese machines but rebrand them. That's also quite interesting. I won't mention names because they're not really producers in their own right. The biggest producers, and I'm going to pronounce this wrong, Zhailai or something in China. I pronounced it badly. I know I did. Sorry. Maybe someone who speaks good Chinese could put that right. Where, mass production, low cost, and the likes of Amazon will use those sort of machines. Our friends at Omnivert also. We missed a really big one. Impulse. They've got more machines than anyone, I would imagine, at the moment in Europe. The only thing is, I think they don't produce now so much for third parties. It's more for own use. And then the last but not least, I'd say of the big players, SMBC. Although, if someone's interested, we've got a few really good suppliers from small places that not many people know about. So if you're interested, you can knock on our door at LMP or LME being last mile experts, and we can share a bit of interesting information. So that's your...
I'll pop Marek's phone number down below. Maybe
magnum opus on locker producers.
Right. Now, we've run out of time. It's a great topic. If you've got... Share your comments below. Let us know what you think about the two flavors of parcel lockers that we've been discussing. Make sure you check out the previous video we published as well. Thank you for watching this video on YouTube. Remember to hit like, subscribe, and the notification button. And at the end of this video, you'll see our beautiful faces and a couple of suggestions for videos to watch, like up there somewhere, or there, I don't know. Watch them. It's great. Think of all the time you waste on YouTube watching rubbish when you could watch something that's educational, informative. There you go. What a sell that was for YouTube, everybody. Please do subscribe. Helps us keep this channel free. Marek Krzyzewski, thanks for being part of the Last Mile Profits today.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. I'll just add one thing because my friend Gary at Quadient will never forgive me. Of course, there is also Quadient,
Parcel
a
pending,
very
of course.
important supplier of innovative locker solutions.
We're going to get some emails after this one, aren't we? Thanks, everyone.
If we missed
Bye.
someone,
We've missed you.
Give us a call, and we'll probably have to do part 3.
Part 3. All right.